Have you heard about good stress and bad stress? Is that even a real thing? Hi, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Saira, the show where I answer your questions about mental health, personal growth, and relationships. Today's question is from Jackson. It's a really simple question and I think has an interesting answer. The question is there such a thing as good stress and bad stress? Is there such a thing as good stress and bad stress? Um, Sometimes when I'm teaching about stress, there'll be someone in the audience that says, "Oh, but isn't a little bit of stress good? Like, isn't there good stress? Because if we didn't have good stress, we wouldn't get out of bed and we wouldn't do our jobs and da 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 da." So I want to define stress first of all. Okay, so the way that we talk about stress in the field of psychology is usually what we're talking about is the stress response. Okay, so the stress response, because there's stressors, there's things that can create stress or cause stress or trigger stress. Then there's the stress response. So anything can be a stressor. So for some people, deadlines can be a stressor, right? Now, is that good stress? Is that bad stress? What? So let's unpack this a little bit. When I talk about stress in this video, what I'm talking about is the stress response. And what is the stress response? So the stress response is basically when the brain experiences a stressor and basically the body responds with a certain energy that it needs to act. Okay. So something happens out there in the world. My body responds with this energy that's designed for me to act to basically save my life. That's what the stress response is for, so they can run away from the tiger. So is that good or bad? Well, it's adaptive, it's survival, it's what it is. It's not good or bad. It's just a response that happens in the body. Now, there are situations where having that extra energy can be productive, right? And so what we found in the research is that there are situations where people actually perform better mentally or even physically when they have these moments of activation. However, that only happens if there also isn't a chronic stress lifestyle that person is experiencing, and they've already experienced the task that they're engaging in. So they're familiar with the task or they're familiar with the ask and they've done it before. Then you have that heightened performance, right? You have that they do better. You have that like rush feeling. If the person like their brain is generally just in the chronic stress state, then there's no good stress or bad stress. It's just all stressful. It's just all bad stress. The good stress that people talk about is this one tiny slice where I've done this many times before, and I'm just generally relaxed, but there's this thing that's happening in my body, kind of gets into this rush feeling, and then I perform well. So stress is a biological response. So there's like the stress response is a biological. The same thing happens in the brain, whether it's, the deadline for like, I have to submit this thing by this certain deadline. That same activation is the same as I almost got in a car accident. The feeling in the body is the same. The hormones that are flowing through the body are the same, right? That feeling is the same. What's different is the meaning that we make of whatever is happening around us. So for that deadline, right, I might feel excited and like that rush feeling and that creativity and that juice. Or if I'm also dealing with all these other things and I'm chronically stressed, it can just actually feel like a tiger. It can feel like something I just want to run away from, something I don't want to deal with, right? So yeah, I just wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit. The other piece around chronic stress is that we get acclimatized to stress. So when we're in that activated state for too long, like longer than the body was designed for that, the brain kind of just acclimatizes to these stress hormones and you just feel like, oh, this is just normal. But if we were to actually like look at your blood and look at your heart rate and look at your, your arteries. Are they open? Are they closed? Look at your digestive system. Look at your brain wave function. If we were to actually like objectively measure what's happening in your body, though you don't feel stressed, though you're like, yeah, I'm fine, you're basically all that's happened is that your brain has acclimatized, so you no longer feel the emotion of stress, but the physical experience of stress is still happening in your body. You just don't notice it. So you're highly stressed, your body is highly stressed, but you've learned to kind of ignore that uncomfortable feeling of stress. And when we're in that chronic state of stress, if we can only sustain that for a period of time until we crash. And then we call that burnout, right? We go into crisis or burnout because we've maintained this high level of activation. We can only do that for so long and then we'll crash. Now, in the middle of that high level of activation, there's other stressors that come up, right? So even though they might be something that on another day you'd find like, oh, this is motivating, it's just it won't feel that way because you're in a state of chronic stress. So my answer to the question, is there such a thing as good stress and bad stress? I would say it's a more nuanced than yes or no. It's that if you have chronic stress in your system, in your bloodstream, in your mind, in your life, then everything will feel like bad stress. Nothing will feel like good stress, right? But if generally you're kind of relaxed and you're kind of open and things are, you're able to kind of roll with things and move with things and you're not kind of at that like just numbed out high level of stress, then once in a while a little jolt like that can be really invigorating, and it can be really if it's in an area where you already have some experience. In brand new areas, it can feel fear. You could feel fear rather than excitement and exhilaration. Another really interesting thing is that fear and excitement physiologically look the same in the body. Think about being on a roller coaster, right? That's like, am I afraid? Am I excited? Am I afraid? I'm not sure. The physical response in the body is the same. What's different is the meaning that you make to that physical expression that's happening in your body. So I remember I was going on stage for something. Maybe it was my TED Talk. Yeah, possibly my first TED Talk. So I remember being backstage and feeling that, that like, that feeling. And I remembered that excitement and fear feel the same in the body. And so instead of being afraid of what I'm about to just do, let me translate that as excitement. One of my teachers used to say, you will get butterflies. You will get butterflies. Your job is to teach them to fly in formation, right? So the experience will be there, and then you have to kind of manage that experience and reinterpret that experience as it's happening. With the stress. So those are my thoughts about good stress, bad stress. Do feel free to do more looking around in the channel. There's lots of interesting content in here. There's trainings and videos. My TED Talk is here, 2 TED Talks, and check it out. And then leave me a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.